Just checking my audio settings there. I think they're okay. Hello and welcome to Plugging Along, a stream dedicated to LOTRO plugins. Last time on Plugging Along, we... no, says we hear you. Awesome. Always good to make sure that we're connected that way. Last time on Plugging Along, we finished a few changes to Festival Buddy 2 and released it over on LOTROinterface.com. And today we're going to start by using the Festival Buddy 2 Yule quick guide, just to demonstrate it for anyone who's curious about it, and then switch over to updating Deed Tracker for the latest deeds in-game. We're currently at update 42.3, and that's going to include 4 new regions in Haradwaith and lots of reputation deeds as well, I think. And some instance deeds for the Legacy of Morgoth. So, touching a few different parts of things there. So, let's go ahead and pull up in the system menu, the plugin manager. You can also do this as a chat command. And I'm just going to make sure I've clicked the green arrow button so that I have an updated list of stuff. Oh, we were talking about cosmetics over on Little Redhead's stream. This is definitely just a proof of concept at this point, but a while back I was playing around with a cosmetics window because I was trying to find the cosmetics that Wenda's wearing if they're available in game so I can model a character after Wenda Cranespill. And so, using data from the LOTRO Companion, I was able to go ahead and line up cosmetics with the items that make those things. And so what we're seeing here is just a very simple view where the number there is how many different ways you can find that cosmetic in the game. We can see the Summer Concert Tunic. There's only one place to get it, but the cosmetic, let's see, does it work? Yeah, the cosmetic from which this thing is, it looks like the Umbari Armor of the Desert Sun. There are 16 ways to find that. And we can see, at the time that I did this, and of course there's been new items released since then, but the time I did this, yes, there are a lot of these, but not as many as you would think. This was within the last year, I think, that I updated this data. And some of these may not even be available anymore. This is like everything. The Chain Hauberk of Mystery? I don't know. Maybe. But using this, you can preview them, right? So you can be like, what does it look like? What is that? What is this? And just set that off to the side. And you can just click through everything in the game to be like, what looks good? And assuming you're at max level and your character's a bit of a completionist, if you find something, the goal was then to be like, okay, what are the names of these things so I can go hunt them down in the world? And connecting a cosmetic to how do I get it, sometimes that's just going back to the wiki, right? And the wiki will tell you, where do I find this thing? But yeah, it was a starting point. But like I said, I was trying to figure out what in-game item, if any, is Wenda Cranespill wearing. And the answer was none that I could find. That seems to be a custom cosmetic for Wenda Cranespill, which is a little disappointing. But we can see this look right here, which on this item, the name is not coming through. It's kind of dark there. But there are 29 objects or items in game that look like this. They might have different coloring by default, so you might pick it up and you might look different, but the underlying cosmetic, 29 different things are pointing at that same look. 37 for this one. Yeah, something's up with my tooltips. They're not great. But a lot of these are single items. Like this one, Thatcher's tunic and trousers. There's only one thing in the game that has this specific look to it. Cool. 35 different things point at this look, though. Yeah. I think because there's just a long list of items, some of which may not be available in the game, and my code just had to pick one of them and be like, this is the one. It's probably picking one, like the oldest one instead of the newest one. And so the tooltips are not great. But what I can do is I can go in and, because it's so preliminary, I can go in and find that item and be like, okay, find me some other item IDs that are better. So yeah, that's what's up with this. It's so proof of concept that you have to go into the code and change which type of gear that you're looking at. But yeah, so the black and blue prospectors garments, and then the crimson and blue prospectors garments, and then the blue prospectors garments. These are only available in that form. So this is just a fun way of visualizing what's up with things in the game, and uh, one could imagine if one were putting together a cosmetics section of the collections panel, that it wouldn't have to be the collections panel. There could be another button here for cosmetics or wardrobe. But then within there, you would have each of the different slots. So you would have your something in parallel to here, where you have head, shoulders, knees, and toes along the left side here. Um, Therapy asks, what cosmetic plugin is this? This is a proof of concept. It's not out. It's not released. It was just oh, that's interesting. I wonder if I can make something to go through here and see a bunch of different cosmetics. So someday this may approach actual things that are useful for other people, but also it is one of those things that very much needs to be updated regularly, and I would very much like to not be the one who has to do that. So I need to automate that as much as possible. But once it is updated in some way, and maybe better presentation and the ability to actually select which items instead of it being hard coded, there's all sorts of changes that need to happen. But that is something that I could definitely see being integrated into the game, or a reflecting off of my vision for what would be in the game is a wardrobe panel where you have the different items, and when you select chest pieces, you get a list like this, and if you click on one, it's like, here are the things that use this cosmetic, and you have or have not gotten it. Like, I love that. And like, oh, you have gotten it? Cool, you can use it, and you can dye it up in here, and it would be a replacement, like Wardrobe 2.0. However, until we get that, I think it would at least be neat to be able to see in game what some of the options are. But short of links to the wiki, I'm not sure how to give more information about where to find it, because that information seems a little opaque. I can definitely link up items and their cosmetic IDs using the data that LOTRO Companion has put together, but going beyond that, and it's like, now you found a cool cosmetic, how do you get it? That is a mystery to me. So I'm not exactly sure. Other than if you clicked on it, I could go ahead and list out all the item IDs, and you could find a name in the wiki or something, right? Like, it would still be very manual. And that does not bring me joy. What's that? Lumberjack? Jacket of the Heartwood. Nice. I like it. Okay, so I was just reminded of that. So that's the kind of thing that you could do with a plugin, is you could iterate through all of the known items, or all of the cosmetic, unique cosmetics, and in some way show which items are associated with that. That's all possible. But knowing where it comes from, that's harder. Okay, Festival Buddy. We're just going to go ahead and demonstrate, for anyone who hasn't seen it yet or would like a refresher, the quick guide available in the Festival Buddy. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is find this item. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the quick guide here. And I'll also have the Festival Buddy window here, so we can see the quick guide maps come up, in case you weren't aware that those are there as well. And we're going to start by going over to Mara Downs, because it says take in the spirit of Yule from Mara Downs. Cool, I accept. And it knows that we've done that, and it checks that off. So the next thing that we're going to do is take moving them off from Guard Kemper. You may decide that this is untasteful for you to do, and if that's the case, just come on into the options screen and just disable that from the Yule quick guide. So come on in here and say we are not moving them off. It'll hide those things from the quick guide list. Anything related to that quest. But we are going to go ahead and do that because, again, my headcanon is we are in league with the Resistance. We are moving them off by sending them over to the Resistance headquarters where they can warm up, get some food, and plot the overthrow of the mayor. If that doesn't work for you, just hide moving them off, and then it doesn't show up on the quick guide list. Telerian is saying kind words about it. That's awesome. Telerian, I keep thinking about what would it take to make a quick guide builder a plugin so that you wouldn't have to hard code your own changes into a quick guide on your machine that couldn't be distributed, where you could just build a quick guide and then just post it up on somewhere for other people to download. So that's maybe a 2025 project, is self-makeable quick guides. And that would just be its own little plugin, Festival Buddy Quick Guide Maker, that you would load up, and you would craft a quick guide and you would save it out, and then Festival Buddy would be able to load that up for a specific festival. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and take moving them off, and while we're here, we'll take Abominable Snow Beasts, and while he's here, we're going to go send Garrett Noel off to the Resistance headquarters, and then we're going to move on. Now, Onike does not have her quest. It just started a minute ago, so we are good to go for the cleaning up of the tables instead. So, take Cold as Ice from Daily Utterage, and this does work if you are on French or German clients. The quick guide is available there. For French, it's a little wonky because I don't speak French. The gist of it is there. The names of the NPCs, the names of the quests, the locations, those are all fine. Some English words may still have crept in there. So if you are a French speaker and are using the French version of this and would like to help improve it, I would love to have that feedback. We're going to go ahead and set off the fireworks. I should be mounted up this whole time. I've just been being a little lazy about that. For German, I think with Delirium's help, we've got it so it's pretty reasonable. For German grammar and spelling, we'll see. This is the kind of thing where it gets slightly better each year. If you didn't see it right there, I've just gone ahead and right-clicked most of the patrons that I thought I could get away with without causing my character to shift, and my character is just going to work through those 7 or 8 queued up thefts. And it says they did their best, and I appreciate that. I incorporated most of your changes. I thought it was interesting that the town of Coombe outside of Bree Town looks like it has 2 different ways of being written in the German language file. Sometimes Coombe and sometimes that other word that means the same thing, like gully or something. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and take these quests. Yes, looked. Yeah. Going too fast. Okay, we're going to go ahead and clean up these dishes so that when Onike's quest comes up, we'll be able to get that one. We won't even... I'm not sure we'll even see it as a thing on our radar until we get rid of this quest in our quest log. So yeah, I liked your change, Delirium, about specifying that the Komen Waddle is in Coombe, but instead of just changing it to Schlucht, I think I included that it was in Breeland, which is with a hyphen in English and without a hyphen in German. So the Komen Waddle, or whatever the German name is, comma, Schlucht, comma, Breeland, something like that. So that if you don't know where Coombe or Schlucht is, then you at least have a chance of finding it. But hopefully, if you are... And that was for the In the Gale Association. But hopefully, if you're using the quick guide for the In the Gale Association, you know more or less what you're doing already. Oh, Delirium, that's very kind of you that you weren't able to watch these live, but rewatched them later. I appreciate that. I try to position myself where I'm able to target multiple pieces of this so I can queue them up, and then that frees me up to think about other things, do other things, take a sip of water, whatever, while my character is working through the queue of as many things as possible. So here we're going to go ahead and get the grimy dish, garbage, and the unsightly spill, and get some water. Aaron says, and sometimes I was commenting and then realizing you couldn't read those. Yeah. That's the downside. Like, I enjoy that we're able to have this back and forth here. And that unless you're doing, like on YouTube, if you're doing some sort of a live release or something, it's just hard to synchronize those things. So asynchronous comments are better than nothing, but it's not quite the same. It's one of those problems I have with Discord is I enjoy Discord, especially for the back and forth that you have. It's very responsive and it provides for an engaging, real-time conversation. But it's also a black box into which search engines can't delve, and it's not exactly easy to search, and you can't make new threads quite the same. Like, I think two forums that have been around for 20 years that are indexed by Google that are easily searchable, where you have a new topic, so you start a new thread, and it's not quite as easy, especially if you're having a rapid back and forth conversation, because new things can get posted and you don't realize it. But for persistence, it's amazing. It's static pages. It's there forever. It's easy to host, easy to maintain comparatively. And we're going to check on Onake. We're going to go ahead and pick up her quest and then keep going. Yeah, so Discord is really neat, except for stuff goes there and will die, right? Like, as soon as Discord stops becoming a service, because I don't know how they make money, but eventually the Discord will stop being Discord, and then everything you've ever done on Discord, like, you might be able to export it, but then what do you do with it? Oh, I forgot to get a stick. I'm too busy ranting about Discord. So I worry about what happens when Discord shuts down, when Discord stops being Discord, and these conversations and relationships that people have built up over time in Discord, and all of this, institutional knowledge that people might have spilled into Discord about a topic, just disappears. From a kind of archaeology perspective, it feels like we're setting ourselves up for a massive failure of continuity of information in the next 10 years or something, where suddenly we're just going to be like, oh no, that was a bad idea, but it'll be too late. I don't know what to do about that, because at the same time, Discord's incredibly easy to use, and I like that you have that knowledge of, oh, we're having a conversation, I can see people are talking, maybe I'll pause and let them get their thoughts in. Like, all of that feels hard on your traditional forum that doesn't have those features. All right, that's 9. We can see my on-screen text is struggling to catch up, but in chat I can see collected 9 out of 9, and the quick guide also detected that as well, so we advanced. Little Redhead says, we've been through this before, though. It'll just keep happening. Think Yahoo groups and BBSs and so on. Absolutely. But again, static text pages in a forum can be backed up in other places, like an Internet Archive, where you might very well be able to find Internet Archive backups of some of these groups. Maybe not if they were a closed group, but public internet forums that have been there for decades, and will continue to be as long as someone pays the hosting bill, as long as the Internet Archive has scraped it. Narnar wonders, maybe AI will help us preserve / republish Discord contents. I don't know. When I think AI, I think a lot of people are talking about generative AI, which has been in the news recently. So for a lot of people, generative AI is AI. And in that sense, if that's what you're thinking of, is something like a ChatGPT style thing, then a fun thing to do is to interrogate ChatGPT on where it got the information for what it just told you. It's like, ask it for some piece of information. Okay. No, not talking about generative AI. That's good. Well, but for those who are curious, if you're using a tool like ChatGPT and you ask it for information, ask it where it got that information from, and keep digging into it. And I tend to refer to generative AI as hallucination machines, which is not to say that they are always wrong, because you can hallucinate true things, but it is always to say that it is not trustworthy, that whatever a generative AI has produced, I then feel compelled to go double check. And that's kind of true about the product from real people as well. But if you're reading, say, a newspaper article, you can hope that at least someone has gone through and edited it, maybe even fact-checked it before it's gone out there. Whereas a generative AI output from something like ChatGPT, no one's fact-checking that unless it's the person who's using it. And one can hope. Okay, we're going to keep on going over to... Well, actually, we've got a food challenge. Let's go ahead and knock those out so we don't keep seeing it being all shiny. So I'm going to advance this on down to the biggest stomach of them all, just so we have a map that matches. And we can see there's no one else waiting at the tables here, so we are free to compete in the loosest sense of the word. Let's see how the Mr. Drink goes. It went great. Perfect. Narnar was thinking agentic AI. Yeah, I think you could write computer programs that could do things like extract the history from Discord and then somehow reconstruct it somewhere else that's not a walled garden. You do have a question of all the people who were contributing to it not assuming it would be public forever. So there might be some permissions issues. Possibly some copyright issues if people were posting like works in progress of stories or something, and then you've just like dumped that out there. So that would have to be very much a Discord server by Discord server discussion of, do we persist this? How do we persist this? What do people agree to? But yeah, like I could see that in general as a solution. All right, hey, it worked again. Hurry from Mr. Jink. Yeah, so in the last year or so, I've tried to be very conscious of when people say AI, what do they mean? And if they don't have anything more than that, then they may be lay people who are just kind of using what's in the popular zeitgeist. And so when someone says AI, it's a good idea to kind of interrogate in the sense of digging into it a little bit. Like, just double check, what do they mean by AI? And if what they mean by AI is ChatGPT, then that is a small part of the broader AI world. Okay, well, I don't really want these other things. So, what do we have here? We're at 3 out of 5 here. I'm going to remove most of those things. I think we just have to accept that we're going to have a few of those. Great. We've dumped a lot of our debuffs. These are going to replace them all because those are all pretty lightweight debuffs. But we're going on to the last table, so it's fine. A little bread never hurt anyone. Unless they're celiac. Alright, I feel like these tables are going to get wiped here. Narnar says, I feel like 2025 is going to be the year everyone gets their own Jarvis. Maybe. I think there's a computational and power consumption issue at play that's going to be difficult. That's going to mean difficulties to bringing these things up to scale. Nope. I want the eggs. Nope. Okay, I want the berries. There we go. Like, cloud-based computing, where the word cloud means it's running on someone else's computer. Cloud-based computing... Do not use the escape button. Means we don't really pay attention to the computational and power costs of things that we're doing nearly as much as if every time we ran ChatGPT, our power bill went up by five money units or something. Oh, I paused in the middle of my quick guide, but one of the great things about the quick guide is it's just sitting there getting me back on track. So we're going to go back into this corner. Narnar says, Jarvis Light, minus the robots, of course. Yeah, so I think I think personal assistance, uh, if you're hooked up to a cloud, someone else's computer, for the computational stuff. So whatever you ask for gets packaged up, sent off, churned, and then returned to you. Then it does raise the question of how much power, how much cost is there behind the surfaces, and what's going on with that. Oh, gathering coal. And if it's on your own systems, well, modern AI systems benefit from huge training sets and lots of computational resources. So, does everyone just have a sort of a supercomputer in their house to power this thing? I don't know. And Dara says, I enjoy when people use zeitgeist in conversation. Thanks for that. You are very welcome. It's such a useful word. So, a thing that I suspect is that because the tech industry goes through waves of mass hysteria slash hype, and a few years ago the hype train was NFTs, and right now the hype train is generative AI and AI in a broader context, but spawned by a lot of generative AI work that's being done. And my guess is a lot of that's going to die down as the next thing comes along and people get really excited over something. Not sure, maybe VR headsets will finally advance to the point where they dominate the conversation, uh, and or dominate it again, depending on your point of view. Um, the next thing is going to come along, and then I think people are going to not be talking about AI slash generative AI nearly so much as they are right now. Just like people are, I mean, NFTs still exist, but they're not dominating the news cycle the way they were back in 2020. Filling a field, turn it in. Okay, and we're going to continue a charitable spirit. Nar thinks VR slash AR slash XR slash MR plus agentic AI is going to be hot this year. Possibly. Of course, by this I assume you mean 2025, as you said before. Nope. Garrett. And Ted Ives, midway between Onike and Daily Utteridge. Great. Nope. Turn that one in. Follow the quick guide. Don't make things up. So yeah, that would be my not particularly unique hypothesis, is that a lot of what's dominating the conversation right now is the hype train. And while there are real things to think about for AI and how it can be used, a lot of it is just what's currently the thing to go on and on about. So that's my guess. Cool. So that was finishing the quick guide. There's a manual reset once you get to the bottom. Uh, and that's it. I know that I have done everything, kind of by definition, because my quick guide is done, or was done, and then I reset it. So, like I mentioned, if there's quests on here, especially moving them off, that you do not want to do, don't want to have included on there, you can go ahead and select which quests are available in the options. So if we go ahead and just give an example, if we only show the moving them off things, we can see take moving them off from Guard Kember, continue the quest with Barrett, Noel, Ted Ives, Regina Judson, Jack Judson, Bill Hyde, and then turn it in. So those items disappear if you get rid of moving them off. Um, Everything else stays. But because they're all intermixed with each other, it may not be obvious which things get hidden when you deselect one of these things. So moving them off, we can see the take moving them off disappears, and moving them off, there's, I guess all 5 of them are on here. Just not the turning it in. So that's how this works. Note also that the color coding is optional. If the color coding is less helpful than useful for you, I find it very useful because I can pick out, okay, quest, NPC, NPC, whatever. Just deselect the enable colors button, and you will go ahead and get rid of those. Or if you like the colors, but only for certain things, like maybe you just want to care what the quest name is or just the NPC name, you can turn them on category by category. Or change them as well. So you like quests, but you would really much like it be something else. Cool. You can change that in here. If you regret your choices, just click that default button and it'll go back. So it's hopefully as customizable as people are looking for. But if there's more customizing that could be done for a quick guide, just shoot a message over to me and we'll see what's up. Maybe it'll be something that's generally useful. Okay. Oh, yes. You can also customize how long it is after you complete something before it is removed from the list. I don't remember if 0 is never or if it is immediate. Oh, yeah. Remove completed items from the list. You can just turn that off. I like removing them, though, because my to-do list, if it is empty, means I am done. Awesome. Well, unless there's any questions about Festival Buddy and or quick guides, we're going to come over here, park ourselves in a corner, and start looking at Deed Tracker. Just in time for 5 raiders from the Ducks Squad to join in. Hello, raiders from the Ducks Squad. We're going to be looking at the Deed Tracker plugin here in Lord of the Rings Online. So, let's go ahead and unload that. Let's load up the Deed Tracker. And let's go ahead and open up the deed log. Now, we are in the Netherlands here on this end of the camera, and this is New Year's Eve. Or Old Year's Day, depending on your point of view. So the fireworks have already gotten started a little bit in the background, and they will only increase as we approach midnight. So if at any time that is more distracting than just occasional background pop-up-pops that come through my microphone, let me know in chat. So far it hasn't been too bad from what I'm hearing, but eventually, if I stream long enough, it will start becoming a problem. So, let's see how far we can get before that time. So, the Deed Tracker. We are missing some things in the Deed Tracker, specifically in instances. We have gotten the Legacy of Morgoth. That's going to be under instances, which Deed Tracker currently has Corsair of Umbar, but we don't have the Legacy of Morgoth in here yet. Or at least I added the category, but I haven't added the deeds. And then there's stuff under the Reputation tab in Class Race Epic. I'm not sure what's there, but it's just all in Reputation. And then Haradwaith itself, in addition to the first 3, we now have Ambarul, we have Khudzakin, we have Imhular, and we have Urashdar. So those 4 area tabs within Haradwaith need to be addressed. I've already done a few of them in the background, but we're going to look and see what that process looks like, which is, I would say on the whole, straightforward, but kind of low energy. We're just going to be looking at some text files, modifying some spreadsheets. It's going to be straightforward, gentle topic as we come into the last day of the year here. We're finished out the last day of the year. So, what I've done is I pulled in some data from the LOTRO companion, and that's going to be over here on the left. This is the raw data for the deeds that we're working with, and we've got a spreadsheet into which we're putting them that will generate the Lua code for us. And this is important because for ease of iteration, ease of access, we're doing tables that have numerical keys, and this means we're able to iterate through them in a specified order. Otherwise, by default, if you're iterating through the contents of a table in Lua, you're just getting them in what looks like a quasi-random order. Under the covers, we can guess this is probably a hash table, and so we're just iterating through the nodes of the tree. But in practice, what it means is that you get things that look like they are just in a random order. But with numerical indices, we can iterate through in the expected order. And you can do this either by having the numerical indices in this table, or have a second lookup table that has numerical indices and the key that is over here. But unless you have a reason to do that, it can be easier just to have the numerical key straight away. However, that means that if you need to insert something in the middle of this table, oh, I need a new number 9 here, that means you need to modify the indices 10, 11, 12. Each one of these gets bumped up by however many items you just inserted. So, just to make life easier on myself, I go over to Excel because I use Excel for more than I should. And in Excel, I go ahead and write the things that I want to be generated, and I go ahead and just generate the appropriate line, and when I insert something new, it can update that relatively easily. Are there better tools for this? Almost certainly. Is Excel super easy to use and spreadsheets generally available? Also, yes. So that's what we're going to do. Narnar says, never apologize for that. Fair enough. Yeah. So that's what we're going to do is, I think I just finished up this tab in Mahular. Let's go ahead, and I don't think they'll have shown up here yet, but let's double check. Yep, we have an exception because it's not there yet. I need to run some additional post-processing, but we're getting closer. We'll come in here instead. So in Mahular, we do have all of the deeds that we expect to go there. We're going to come in and finish Urashdar. So Urashdar is category 86. So what I'm going to do is find all of the category 86 items, and we're just going to go ahead and copy those off into a new tab. So, or new buffer. And these are the deeds that we can expect to be dealing with, and it's a lot of text. It's fine. So these are the ones that we can expect to be dealing with. And we're going to make a new tab here. No, I said new tab. I just want to duplicate the previous one. No, delete. And we're going to go ahead and move or copy, create a copy, put it at the end, please. Thank you. And in this one, we're going to go ahead and call it Urashdar. Great. And then just delete all the stuff that was already in there. Now, this one's interesting because Urashdar has some wrapper deeds for the region. So in Urashdar, we have some umbrella deeds for having completed like all the explorer deeds for all 4 of these regions, all the slayer deeds for all 4 of these regions. So this is where we run into a problem where Deed Tracker really doesn't have the conception of a deed having multiple parents or that kind of a hierarchy. There's really a one-to-one correlation in Deed Tracker, because in Deed Tracker, that's kind of how this works for 99% of the in-game deeds. The Southern Beacons is a part of Explorer of Eastern Gondor and nothing else. But there are, every once in a while, some deeds that are the prerequisites for multiple other deeds. In that case, we just pick one and run with it. So we're going to come on in, and we have the Rejuvenator of the Ecorbin Valley. And for that, we can see that the main wrapper for this area is the Vanquisher of Urashdar. But Rejuvenator of the Ecorbin Valley has got to go somewhere, so it's going to be our top level deed here. We're just going to copy that information in. We can see over here the Lua code is being generated for the ID and a comment just letting us know what it is. And that is indented 0. Cool. Within this, we know that we're going to be completing some other things. We're going to be completing this one, which is the Renewer of Ambarul. Yeah, I've already deleted that. That's okay. Oh, right. We've already done that one. So, Renewer of that deed already appears. That deed already appears. That deed already appears. The only one that's not already done is this one. So, these other ones are necessary, but if you're doing this in order, you have already completed them. If not, it's just a hidden requirement. Just like if you have quests and deeds that are all part of the requirement of a deed, you don't. Deed Tracker doesn't currently show you those quests or track that you've completed them. but they're still there. So we're going to go ahead and work on Vanquisher of Urashtur. That's this one. Great. So let's find that. And just for ease of use, we're going to hoist that up to the top here. Got some fireworks going in the background. And also my game music, which, let me know if that is a little bit too loud. Actually, that I can easily control. Okay, so Vanquisher of Urashdar. This is the Explorer, Slayer, and Quest Wrapper Quest. Sorry, Deed. So we're gonna just again, since this one has multiple sub objectives, we're gonna hoist that one up as well. All right, Explorer of Urashtar. This is overlapping a little more than I want it to. So we're just going to slide those apart. So Explorer of Urashtar, we're another level down, and it has 3 objectives. So we're going to go ahead and grab each of those. Each one of these should just be complete in and of itself with no further subdeeds if it is consistent with the others. So we're going to give that a look here. All right, dangers. We can see a bunch of landmark detection things. We're just trying to find places. So this is dangers in Urashtar. Got an extra double quote there. And we're going to go ahead and clean that up. Coding, gaming, and fireworks is our trifecta of happiness. I enjoy fireworks from time to time, but I'm also conscious that we have 2 cats in the house who are not fans of fireworks, although one of them is doing a really good job of curling up and sleeping in her bed over there for now. I suspect she's going to disappear when it starts for real. All right, discovering Urashdar. This also has a bunch of landmark detections, so it is a leaf node in this tree. All right, and Treasure Seeker of Urashdar. Great. So all of these are underneath Explorer, so these are a 3rd tier indented in, and this is how we get this indented look here using these tiers. Okay, so deleting this one. We're just deleting them because, again, this acts like a to-do list. Once I delete it, I am done with it. All right, so that's the Explorer of Urashtar, Dangers, Discovering, and Treasures. Therefore, this one is done. Great. So Vanquisher of Urashtar, we're going to come in and do the next one, which is the Slayer. And the Slayer, as a wrapper, usually has a bunch of children. So let's come take a look at that. And again, we're going to go ahead and hoist this one up so it's easily findable at the top of the file. Slayer of Urashtar, this is level 2. And we're going to come on in and just grab a couple of these. We can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's go ahead and grab those IDs. And each one of these has an advanced and basic pair. So we're going to leave space for the basics here because these are only referencing the advanced. Great. And we know this is going to be 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4. There we go. Okay, so the first one, we're going to go ahead and find that. That's going to be Brigand Bane of Urashtar Advanced. It's going to have its own prerequisite of Brigand Bane of Urashtar Basic. These are conveniently right next to each other. Now that we're done with this, we're going to go ahead and delete. And that brings us to the next one. So, 691. This is the Jackal Slayer of Urashtar. And its basic version. For that, we're going to go ahead and delete this and then find wherever Jackal Slayer ended up. It's over here. We're going to delete that. And we'll just keep on going like that. 93. This is the Kurgram Slayer of Urashdar with its basic version. Oops. And I'm doing a lot of copy paste here because I find it much easier to avoid copy paste errors if typing errors if I'm just copy pasting. Whatever is supposed to be there gets there, especially the little hat over the A. Thron says, some kind words, that plugin is their most beloved add-on. Well, fantastic. I'm glad you're here. Yep, we're just adding in the new stuff in, release 42. All right, that was the Kurgrim Slayer. Let's move on in. That was 93. Yep. Moving on to 95. So this is the Orc Bane of Urashdar. And it's a basic version. Orc Bane of Urashdar. The Redhead says, now you can watch how the sausage get made. Yes, it's a very boring sausage in some ways. John says, think I made it past 50% completion. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, in some ways it's really neat to see the numbers go up, and in other ways, for me, it was just about as much reorganizing the information as it was making sure I'd gotten them all. Like, yes, definitely want to make sure I get them all, but also the alphabetical first by type and then by name method that the deed log has just was not working for me. All right, so we're gonna come on in for the next one. Slayer, we're looking for 87. Yep, Tron says, you can see the hidden deeds are the ones you haven't started yet, so you don't miss any. So good. Absolutely. Like, one of the new areas, Ambarul, has a cliff diver of Ambarul, and I'm kind of suspecting that you don't know about that deed until after you've dove off at least one of the cliffs. Trottenheimer says, what? Indeed. All right, that finishes off all of those. We're going to go ahead and do this last one here, which is the Spider Slayer of Urashdar. And its basic version. There we go. Great. So that is all of the leafs, or these children, hierarchical children of Slayer of Urashdar. So Slayer of Urashdar is done. Leading us back to Tales of Urashdar. This should just be a single complete quests one. It feels like in recent times they've kind of abandoned the tiered version of kind of a basic complete 10 quests, intermediate, complete 30, advanced, complete 50. Now this one is just complete 30 quests in Urashdar in the Ecorbin Valley. All right, and that's going to be at level 2 because we're underneath the Vanquisher of Urashdar, and we're done with that. So, Vanquisher of Urashdar, that was Explorer, Slayer, and Tales, therefore, Vanquisher is done. However, we might not be completely done. So, what we want to do is Vanquisher of Urashdar. That's going to come on up. We're just going to review what other things are here. We have Explorer of Urashdar, we have Dangers of Urashdar, and Discovering Urashdar, and Treasure Seeker of Urashdar. Great. That's the Explorer. We have Slayer of Urashdar. Within that, we have Brigand Bane. Okay. We have Jackal Slayer. Whenever I hear Jackal, I think of Late Night with Seth Meyers. I'm sure he would approve of slaying jackals. Kurgrim Slayer. We have Orc Bane of Urashdar. Where's the other one? There we go. We have the Scorpion Bane of Urashdar. And we have the Spider Bane. We have 8 Raiders from the Master of Dungeons. Welcome, Raiders from the Master of Dungeons. Welcome to this update of the Deed Tracker plugin for Lord of the Rings Online. And we have Tales of Urashtar. Little Redhead says, that's funny, I think of West Wing when CJ did the Jackal. I guess we don't have a lot of the jackals in our day-to-day lives. Okay, so we can see anything down here we haven't dealt with yet. So, of the Corbin Valley, these are wrapper deeds that are satisfied by completing the corresponding thing in each of the 4 tabs. Ambarul, Kudzagan, Imhular, and Urashtar. Dar says, the Master of Dungeons says, the Plugin Master. Welcome, yes. I don't know about the Master, but certainly an enthusiastic amateur. Dar says, thanks for the distraction from work. Heading back to the grindstone, it was cool seeing the gears behind the scenes. Well, thanks for joining us. Good luck to everyone out there who has to work some or all of today. And have a happy new year. Little Redhead images imagines people headbanging to Master of the plugins. That may be about as far as we can go from a copyright perspective. Okay, so what we're going to do is, of the Corbin Valley, we're going to separate these out, and we have Bane of the Ordakai. And I'm curious about Bane of Ordakai because I don't know what that is. So let's come in. Slay many Ordakai foes throughout the Corbin Valley. So, okay, this is just another wrapper, interestingly, but named differently. Okay. Okay, so that is also a wrapper. So we have these wrappers, Boar, Slayer of the Corbin, Explorer of, Tales of, Treasure Seeker of, and Scorpion Slayer of. Now, I'd like to organize these in a similar way to how they appear in their normal environment. So we're going to start with the Explorer one. So this is Explorer of the Corbin Valley. Then we're going to go into the Slayer of, and then finally the Tales of. And then we just want to come in. Well, Treasure Seeker is definitely an Explorer. Slayer of the Corbin, that's a bit of a wrapper. And then we have some underneath that. But none of these are parented to each other, I don't think. So Bane of the Ordakai, this is just a wrapper. Boarbane, yep, and Imhalar, okay. Scorpion Slayer, that's 3 different ones. Ambarul, Imhalar, Urashtar, great. And then Explorer and Treasure Seeker, again, should be pretty self-sufficient. Treasure Seeker, complete Treasure Seeker of these places, great. And then Explorer. Complete Explorer of. Now, one could parent this. One could say Treasure Seeker is a requirement of Explorer, and that is technically true because in order to finish each of those Explorer deeds, you have to have finished each of the Treasure Seeker deeds. Similarly, Slayer of the Corbin Valley, we could conceptually parent these together. You have to complete Slayer of wherever, and if we look at Bane of the Ordakai, we can see that these deeds here, let's come on into Ambarul. We can see, Ordakai. If we come on into Kudzakin, Ordakai, and if we come on into Imhalar, Ordakai. So we can see that these were all prerequisites of the Slayer deeds. The only one where that's not true, I think, is the Boarbane. If we take a look at the Boarbane, it has prerequisites for Ambarul, but in Ambarul, Boar Slayer, and then Boar Slayer of Imhalar. But in Imhalar, Boar Slayer was not actually included in the Slayer deed. I'm not actually sure if this was an oversight or intentional, but if we go into the original file here so we can see all of it. Boar Slayer of Ambarul, we can see that is a prerequisite of Slayer, but if we come on in here to Boar Slayer of Imlar, it is only referenced in Borbane of the Acorban Valley, and in the in the advanced one, it's not referenced by a wrapper. So in that sense, it's a bit of an odd exception. Because Boar Slayer is part of the Slayer deed somewhere else, it feels like that was more an oversight. But maybe conceptually it makes more sense when you are playing in game. Maybe there's just so few boars in Imhular that this is an exceptional thing that they didn't want to like penalize people if they couldn't find enough boars for it or something. Like there could be a reason, but sometimes when a deed's not included in the wrapper deed, my mind just kind of goes to, oh, maybe that was a mistake. Okay, so we have we know Borbane can't be a part of Slayer, but we could conceptually indent some things like this, where we group things together where Explorer comes first, then Slayer related things, and then Tales. And that to me makes some sense. And then we just get to choose whether or not we want to deal with the indentation part of things. So let's go ahead and start bringing these in. Explorer of the Valley, and that's going to be tier 0. And then we have Treasure Seeker. And I think I do want to indicate that there is a hierarchical relationship here that you cannot complete Explorer of the Acorban Valley without completing Treasure Seeker of the Acorban Valley, even though they don't directly reference each other. I think that makes more sense. Until I hear otherwise. And we're going to go ahead and do the Slayer the same way. We're going to go ahead and represent that Slayer is at the 0 tier, each of these are at the 1 tier, and then because of that exceptional state, Borbane is not going to be underneath the Slayer of the Acorban Valley. Or maybe it's Ikorban with that accent. Pronunciation is always a bit of a toss-up for me when we get to accents like that. And then the Tales of the Acorban Valley, also an indent of 0. Okay, so that is all of the deeds that we're expecting, but let's go ahead and clean them up out of the progress file that we're working with. So we're not done. We're done with that one, and we're going to come on in here and get rid of this, because again, when this file is done, I know I am done. Pressed the wrong key there. Okay, and then Tales of. Great. So, what does that leave us with? The Rejuvenator of the Acorban Valley, that's actually in here. And that was only Renewer of those 4 things. And again, 3 of them are in a different tab, but Vanquisher of Rastar is a requirement of this. It's just not, it is necessary but not sufficient. So we can go ahead and call that one done as well. Now we're seeing things that are in perhaps different locations. These look like reputation and instance deeds. We can double check that by selecting the category equals section here. And we'll just go ahead and copy all those out. No, I did that wrong. Let's go ahead and just get the category. I don't actually care about the rest of it right now. So category equals, select all of them, and go ahead and we're going to go ahead and sort these lines, and we're going to go ahead and permit them to be unique, and we can see we just have categories 35 and 89, and that is reputation. I've already mapped this out, and instances, the legacy of Morgoth. So we have successfully finished all of Ambarul, Kudzagan, Imhular, and Urashtar. So these are done. But we do need to go ahead and get this imported into our code. For historical reasons that I don't agree with anymore, we are the indexing information is not stored with in Lua to begin with. It is over here, and there's reasons for it. I mean, I agree with it from a performance reason, but it's not great, and I want to store it differently. But for right now, it is how it is. And then we're going to go ahead and pull over those 27 lines into our deed tracker area for Urashtar. There we go. So, Urashtar and the Ikerban Valley wrappers. So that gets us done with a lot of these. How many more do we have? We have 33 more deeds to process. So let's start with the reputation ones. We're going to go ahead and be done with this spreadsheet, which is just Herodwith. And coming in to class race epic reputation. And there might be some allegiances in here as well. Nope, I don't see any allegiances. Okay, so conceptually, I don't know who these factions are. So let's investigate a little bit. The Tail Wardens, uncertain. We have the Kintai. The Kintai Elves, great. We have the Ikorbani. And what I'm curious about is there a reasonable ordering in which one would encounter these? Let's go ahead and say that we're probably going to get to ally of most of these. What do we have? We have 3 of them, Tail Wardens, Ikorbani, and Kintai. Well, this is a good time to go over to the wiki and see, is this something that the wiki knows about? So we're going to search for Tail Wardens. Also known as. Okay, great. We're going to check on the Ikorbani. And we're going to check on the Kintai. And we're going to hear fireworks. Great. Ikorbani. Cool. Ally of the Ikorbani. The Ikorbani. Fantastic. Okay. So, spoilers, I guess, for factions for the new section. Oh, good. Telerian has a suggestion for ordering with Ikorbani, the Tail Wardens, and the Adhorhid. So we'll go ahead and reorder these for a moment. That feels like the ordering in which you would encounter these. Okay, well, good enough for me. This can always be changed later. So we're going to go ahead and import these reputations in, and we're also going to add some categories from them as well. So what we want to do is scroll on up here. Okay, we're going to go ahead and do this before crafting events, and Amalia's studies are almost certainly Veil of the Nine. Let me double check that. Should be Veil of the Nine. Yes, good. So they're only going to be visible in Veil of the Nine servers. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and plop them down probably before Amalia studies. I don't know where those belong, but we're going to group things together. We had Citizens of Umbar Barhabel. We're going to go ahead and add some new things. We're going to presume that we only have the 4 levels, so we're going to go ahead and just double check our assumptions there. Yep, we have Acquaintance, Friend, Ally, Kindred. Great. Let's assume that that's true for all 3 of these. All right, we're going to scroll that over. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we'll do that 3 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's go ahead and import, or insert, I should say. And we're going to go ahead and, where do we go with that? The Ikebani. We're going to do the Tail Wardens. And finally, we're going to do that. Is that the Kintai? That's the Kintai. Okay. And because there seems to be a multiple naming thing going on here, I think I might do something like this. The Tail Wardens with that additional name. So it's a little bit easier to find these things. Okay. Now these are categories. We're going to have to do a thing because of historical reasons to get those in. But we're fine for right now. Okay, so the Ikebani. We're going to start with those. And we are going to go ahead and just pull those out. No Kindred. Kindred with the Ikebani. Fantastic. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and order these up, Ally, Friend, and Acquaintance. And we'll go ahead and import those into the spreadsheet. And for that, that is Kindred with the Ikebani, Ally of the Ikebani, Friend of the Ikebani, and Acquaintance of the Ikebani. Okay, we know those are all reputation ones. Don't necessarily need to care too much about that. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know if we care about that. We do need that for the type. Yep, okay. The summary and the lore, I think we can hide that for right now. Okay. Good stuff. Now, one thing I would like is the code that was generating that tier information. Okay, so we would like to insert a column here. That's going to be tier code, and that is going to be possibly needing to be edited. So let's take a look at this. So tier was going to be anything that says C needs to be K. And anything that was B needs to be C. Okay. What else are we missing? A, K. Oh, of course. There we go. We should be able to bring that on down with the rest of these. This is just for our own benefit. Okay, so that is the first faction, the Irbani. Lenora says Easter Bunny. I guess maybe they're the same. I haven't been there yet. So I have not seen the Easter Bunny and the Easter Bunny in the same place at the same time. Okay, we're going to go ahead and clean up these deeds over here. And welcome, Lunar Water. Happy end of the year to you. Okay, so that's for, let's go ahead and do the tail wardens. So, apparently I need to be careful about of versus with, so we're going to go ahead and be a little bit more generous about what we copy. I don't actually care about the faction level, so... Awesome, there's an extra one here. Acquaintance, friend, ally, kindred, and respected. Let's add another line here. We'll come on in, get those, and the names. And of course, these are all reputation. And of course, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we'll just clean that up. Respected by the tail wardens. I assume that's the next one after tier 8. Okay. So kindred should be tier 7. Yes, it is. That's ally, friend, and acquaintance. Cool. Going on to the Kintai. Neutral, acquaintance, friend, ally, and kindred. I guess they don't like you very much to begin with, but that does mean we'll want an extra spot here. We'll bring in those IDs, bring in those deed names, and of course, their categories. Cool. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go ahead and get rid of these in the main file that we're tracking as our to-do list. You know what? I'm hearing my horse whinnying, or pony. I don't need that. Alright, that's friend of the Kintai, acquaintance of the Kintai, and neutral with the Kintai. Great. Oh, apparently there's also neutral with something else that I missed. Neutral with the Ikebani, okay. I guess they all have 5 levels. Okay, so do we think we're done with reputation? Let's find out. We're going to search for category 89, all the categories. I've done that wrong again. I only care about the category. How do I keep doing this to myself? I'm so used to selecting the whole line. It's very weird to not do that. Okay, now I know I did it right. Copy. There we go. We can see the remaining ones are all in category 89. Category 89 is instances / the legacy of Morgoth. So we are done with this. So we want to do a couple things here. We want to come on over to our code generation. And we're going to go ahead and make sure that's copied all the way down to the bottom to cover any inserted fields. This is a place where Excel can trap us up. If we insert lines, those formula can get messed up or are missing. If you drag cells around, those formula can get messed up where they're referring to things on other lines. So just every once in a while, it's not a bad idea to go ahead and re-copy down from what is hopefully a good line. So we're going to come on in to the Ikebani line and go grab our tier codes and bring those on in. Okay, so we have that, and also what we want to do is make sure the categories, we have not done the categories correctly. So, for reasons, categories are done separately. So we're going to open up these entries so we can add them in. It's going to be under reputation. And we're just coming down here. And copy all that. Okay, so this is actually going to be the Eager Bunny. I've done that 3 times, so we're only going to need, I've done 2 copies of it. Yep. And the Kintai. Okay, we need to know what numbers we're looking for here. We can see that we think the last used was 311. We can double check this. It was not correct, 3112 and 3113. So now we can update that. Last use is 313. Great. And then we just want to make sure that those exist for the other languages, but this is a great place to figure out if those other languages have different names for these, or if they have not translated because they don't really have any English variations. So what we're going to do is open these deeds up in other languages and double check that. We're going to start with German. So the Ikerbani. In the German, Ikerbani looks like it has not been localized. So what we want to do is check out the tail wardens, which does sound like something that would be localized. Respected with the... Okay. So we're going to go ahead and start by copying these over into German. And then I'm not sure this other word is actually used anywhere except in the faction name. Yeah, lots of faction name. So let's get rid of that and see, no, it's always faction name. All right, I'm going to remove that for right now. But yeah, if Tellurian... Tellurian says Ikerbani is the name, so the translation is correct. So Tellurian, I'm curious. Is the Fetakari of Umbar, is that a thing that should be just Fetakari von Umbar? Is Fetakari used in the German? Would that make sense? And then I'm going to move on to the Kintai here to give you a chance to respond if you want. And then Kintai looks like it is still Kintai. So we'll go ahead and to Kintai to Otterhid. All right. Well, Tellurian, I'm curious if that seems reasonable for those three. Okay. Well, we can touch... Oh. Trying to say that German faction names are the Ikobani, the Fetakari von Umbar, and the Otterhead. Perfect. And then the things, the starting names are the names that are in the deeds. And so that is straight from the data files, so I believe in that. So thank you for double checking me on there. Awesome. And we're going to use that as a guesstimation for the other translations. So we're going to come on in to French. Bring those in. And do the same thing all over again, but in the French file. And then I assume the Russian won't have had time to have been localized yet, so that is something to revisit if we want later. Kindred with... All right. Ikerbani is the same. Great. Da, da, da. Tail Wardens. The Guardians de Contest. Right? And then for French, something of something. Just to double check. Do, perhaps? Yeah, that seems fine. And then we're going to go in for the Kintai. Oh, that does not look fully localized. It's Des, right? Okay, yeah. Okay, we're going to just start with that, and if anyone knows French and wants to correct me on that, that'll be great. Otherwise, when I get that far, I'll be able to just log into a character who has those factions and look at the in-game view of it by logging into to the various languages. Okay, so that is our categories there, and that tells us we're using 11, 12, and 13. So let's pop on back here and fill that in. So that was 311, 312, and 313. That should be everything we need. Let's give it a try. All 445 entries here. Really? I'm hearing the cat snoring over here. That just seems implausible given all the firework noises. Okay. So we have updated all of those, and we have removed them from our list of what are we working on, so that we should only have instance deeds left, of which we currently have 18 to do. So let's go ahead and move on. We're going to go closing down Class Race Epic and come on in to instances. Okay. So, instances. Corsairs of Umbar, we're going to go ahead and make a copy of that. And this is going to be whatever it was I just said, the Legacy of Morgoth. Okay. And we can see that we don't have freeze paints. Okay, we're going to go ahead and start categorizing these deeds. And this is going to be a problem, again, where we don't exactly know what we're doing, but we can see one of these, Anarchy, Defeat that with the feigning of the accursed. Okay, so this one, we'll see. Probably should be grouped with these other ones up here. We have the rest of tomb. We have Vanquisher of. That is a. Let's see. What's the naming thing? Vanquisher of. Leading in charge, the Vanguard, and the original challengers are all likely to be time sensitive. Okay, so we can see 1, 2, 3 different categories, plus probably some not actively achievable ones. And then it's just a question, again, do we have a sense of what ordering these should be in? The Ashnur, the Nir Kambar, and the Tul Zakana. And once again, I might head over to the wiki just to get a sense of it, or if anyone in chat has a sense of what ordering we encounter these things. I won't be able to see over on Treebeard, more's the pity. We can also go to the Legacy of Morgoth instance cluster. Then order says something to consider sometime. In Developer tab of Excel, you can import the XML as a data source. Absolutely true. The problem with doing that just kind of blindly is that part of what we're doing here is ordering things so that they make a hierarchical sense and keeping an eye out for things that are exceptions. And part of it is we're only really caring about that DID and to a lesser extent the name, which is going to be in a comment to describe what is this deed ID mean. So in the end, we just get a line that looks like this. The ID number is something, and we get a comment with what is this ID. And so we are processing the XML file, but in a way that is very human-focused, where we could definitely parse the XML file and grab these pieces of information, but then we would still need to do the same thing that we're doing right now, which is mulling it over and figuring out what's going on. And for some of them, the hierarchy, we could detect that automatically. Absolutely. Like the standard deeds for a region, we could automate that. But what order the instances come in, that, I don't know. That sounds harder. All right. Instance cluster. So, what do we have? We have a fellowship, we have a small fellowship. So one could think that Ashnug might be first in that list. And let's see, none of them go up to tier 5 at the moment. Okay, what else do we have? Well, people have ideas for walkthroughs and tactics already. Neat. Okay, Kudzagin. Location is also great. Umbara, okay, that's an earlier one. And Imhular. Okay, I am fine with this ordering. We're going to go with Ashnug, then Nirkambar, and then Tul Zakana. Okay, the Flame of the Accursed. Is it possible that there is a wrapper? It's possible. I'm not seeing one right now. We'll go ahead and start here. We're going to need a couple more categories. So coming on into the categories... Oh, I forgot to do the Russian ones. Going to backtrack just a moment. Okay. We're backtracking just a moment to see if there are any translations for the Russian. I'm assuming not at this point. So that would be something to double check later. Yeah. Since that's done by hand, from what I hear. Oops. Yeah, I assume not. But have they caught up to previous release? Yes. Yeah. Okay. So that will get caught up, but in the meantime, we can go ahead and just use the English version for that. So we're going to open up the categories for English and put them in here. Just before 309. Yeah. Okay. Cool. And then we need instances. Legacy of Morgoth. And we know we're at 313. $14, $15, $16. And we're going to go ahead and include those names that we were just doing. Now these may not ever be localized, but we're leaving ourselves open to that possibility. Well, the rest of this Tomb and the Well of Forgetting, those are probably going to get localized. And the Fane of the Accursed. Okay, so we have this. We're going to start by getting them in the right place in the other files. That's line 158. 157 for all three of them, yes. And the Russian. Great. So we at least have the basic categories. We'll come back and update those in a moment. So this is category ID 314, and we will start pulling these out. So we can see we have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, leading the charge, and this one. What's going on with this? $300 time? Okay, it's a Slayer deed. Let's go ahead and see that that is a Slayer deed, and we'll move it on up. Does that make sense? Sure. Okay, and then the leading the charge, that's going to be different. And I've done a terrible thing and didn't take the whole line here, so we're going to redo this. Okay. We've got tier 3, and we know there are 3 tiers here, so let's go ahead and put those in. Where's my ID? That's weird. column width. I do not understand why my A column is missing. But it definitely felt like it was doing something with the freeze panes. Okay, let's fix up all of those and try that again. Okay, so we have 3 tiers. A tier, what have we been doing recently? Just listing them in order. That works. This is tier 0? Deeds of. Let's keep an eye out for a deeds of, because I'm not seeing one. Okay, so that's one of them. That's our tier 2. There's our tier 1. Let's scroll on down. Okay, this one looks like a wrapper. So we're going to go ahead and bring this on up. This is a bane. I should have been searching for these deed numbers. Yes, okay. Okay, so tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and that one. Let's go grab that one. And so at this point, we should have all 4 of these deeds. Great. So this one is done, and they do have tiers of 0, 1, 1, 1, 1. There we go. So let's go ahead and get this done. This is number 315. And we will do better this time because we will come in and search for that. We can see, aha, a Vanquisher. And in here, we can see that it's tier 1, 2, 3, and the Restless Dead. Great. So we're going to pull that in. We know the Restless Dead was going to be 4th, so we'll just go ahead and bring that as well while we're here. And then we have the tier 3 here. Okay, that's the Vanquisher, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and they're missing a space in that, but it shouldn't matter. Cool. So this one's done. And let's make those tiers. Now we do have these leading the charges. We're going to put those into a not actively available category since there's a time constraint there. So instead we're going to come in and get the last category here. This is number 316. And the Vanquisher here, we can see that is our wrapper. We'll pull in those 4 IDs. All right, and we missed the actual wrapper, so let's go ahead and back up for that. Vanquisher of, and that's going to be 01111. Okay, we have 3 leading the charges. Great. Let's come in back and get our not actively achievable entry here. And then we'll go ahead and put those in as well, in the same order, just for consistency. So we have a Chinook leading the charge. And we want to make sure we include limited time only as the notes. Okay, coming on in for the next one. A Nirambar. Also limited time only. And finally, Duel Zakana, the Well of Forgetting, Tier 3 leading the charge. Great. Okay, that was all of the new deeds between the last release of Deed Tracker and now. It's all the categories that we're affecting. We're just going to go ahead and use that in our README file. V3.1.6 changes, deeds, class, race, epic, reputation, and then instances, and then Rodways, I think it is. Cool. So add a deed for these. All right, that's that. And reputation. Let's instances. Let's go ahead and spell these out. Added these. Cool. So that is those categories. Now, we wanted to come back in and for categories, we wanted to go ahead and double check if these are localized for other languages. So, let's go ahead and pull up the German deed file to start. Well, or all of them. Yep. So, we'll go ahead and bring in the Fane of the Accursed, becomes the Temple der Verfluchten. Perfect. Then we'll go ahead and do the rest of this tomb. Rulosgrab. And finally, great. Then in French, we're going to assume since the German was localized, the French also was. So, same thing. We're going to assume the Russian ones have not been localized yet. Yep. The agitated tomb, I like it. And finally, Zakana. Ooh, I have forgotten that ID. I need to come back and get it. Or just grab it here. Okay, so those are our updated categories. And finally, the tiers. Okay, so if we come on in to our README, or our maintenance file, reminding us how we do all this, add deeds to, oh, hey, Sin and chat talking about plugins. There was this plugin that worked like a crosshair function for using potions. It was really helpful, but I cannot find it anymore. Does anyone still know it? Crosshair function for using potions. I'm not sure I have a good grasp on what those words mean in this context. If you have any more words to describe it, or if anyone else recognizes what Sin in chat is mentioning, it'd be great. Yes, Little Red has suggested the potions means the healing or power potions, and quite possibly, but I meant more in the context of a crosshair function. That's the part I'm missing. Okay, so we know what categories they are. We have the deed categories. The new type of deed, there was not. Oh, they're not actively available. We do need those. And these are all frees. Delirium says perhaps wound, fear, poison, disease, removal potions. Sin says it was in the middle of the screen, popping up when I got effects on me. I feel like Prime might have something like that. Did auras do anything like that? Sure, lock me in. Delirium says, if I recall correctly, buff bars, or tonic bars, or mystic bars had a similar function. Yeah, I was just about to go look and see if I'm inspired by my list of plugins. Baz thinks you can do it with Prime. Awesome. Baz would know. Let's go take a look at that. Oh, well, Sin says, yeah, buff bars. Okay, well, excellent. But if one wanted to install Prime, one could open up the LOTRO plugin compendium and add a new plugin, Prime, add that on in. Cool. Coming in back into the game, which is still running, even though we've been ignoring it for so long. What would that be? Prime Cast or no? It's PvP Prime plugin. My goodness. That says it would be a Prime UIU import. Okay. Well, I will not play around too much. Prime, there's so much going on in Primes, and I just use Prime bags for the most part for me, but I know there's a lot you can do. Okay. Well, Sin has been pointing to buff bars. Awesome. I actually really like buff monitor because it jives more with what I'm looking for, but absolutely. Whatever works. Okay. Let's move on. Baz says I could link it, but then I got chopped down by the bot. Well, Baz, if you want to link it, I can host it, or I could try to figure out how to allow such things. But let's see. I don't know if I know how to do that on this channel, but I'll be able to see it and be able to host it on up. Hey, okay, awesome. All right, so what Baz linked there was this, a permit. Okay, so apparently that's what I was supposed to have done. Okay, it shows unbar status potions in a quick slot when the respective debuff is applied to you. My goodness. Well, sure, let's do it. Options, Prime UI, import, and then we're going to paste that in, and import, and we now have a status bar. Presumably I'd have to get into combat for us to actually see it, but awesome. Are there any screenshots to show what it would look like? There are not, but that's okay. Well, thank you, Rollo, for posting such a long string. Okay. Okay, well, I'm not sure what the permit syntax is or how it works. So thanks for jumping in there and getting squashed so I could go ahead and pull it up. Okay, so let's come on into the maintenance file. Once this has been updated with the new structure, run update files in this location. I can do that. And obviously this is a specific to my computer, but serialization, update files. And then LOTRO plugins, competitive lib, an object, sure, we'll get rid of those. And then rerun the companion data parser to regenerate the auto-generated stuff. Sure, let's do it. Companion data parser. Yeah, I don't need debugging. Tellurian has hypothesized permit, and then okay. Awesome, Tellurian. Thanks for pointing that out. So yes, exclamation point permit space username gives them a 3-minute window in which to be, sharing of links. Well, my goodness. Let's go find this D. What have I done wrong? I put it in the wrong place, and it's warning me that that's going to cause problems, which I appreciate. Thank you for warning me. We're going to come into the data dump files. Okay, this is back in Herodwith. And we're going to find this in the workbook. Okay, so I put it in here. That is odd. Category 87. No, that should be there. So what did I do? Tab mismatch 3 versus 4. I really don't think it is a mismatch. Hang on. I mean, obviously it is, otherwise, why would it be having a problem? Okay, let's try that again, but with debugging on. I would like to see this error, please. Awesome. So what's going on here? We are in the writing the data file. We are looking at something that has a category variable. That can't be right. Baz says, did my eye just spot a quadruple nested for loop? Yeah. It's just generating indices. So the problem, of course, is the natural way to represent the structure of a deed log, which has a list of these tabs up top, and within each of these tabs has a list of these at the bottom, and within each of those you have a list of deeds. So it's only triple. So we're iterating through pages and tabs and deeds for each deed on each tab on each page added to the lookup table. And you could do that in other ways to be sure, but a triple loop makes a certain amount of sense in the domain of deeds within LOTRO. Baz says makes sense. It just looks funny. Yeah, you see it a lot when you're iterating through the deed log. It just makes sense. However, I've obviously messed something up because we're having problems, or I'm having problems. Okay, so let me find all instances of this in here. Okay, so that is the third entry in number 4. Okay. Where's my exception? No, sorry. So that's the third in number 4 in number 10. That sounds plausible. Right with 10. Okay. Number 4, number 3. So all that is good. But why am I getting a mismatch? Okay. So the output tab, 3 versus 4. Why do we think we're 3? Okay. Output deed. Yeah, okay. So it should be on the 4th tab. That's fair. So must have messed something up. Bell. Tell me more. Yep. Copy paste error when I was setting that up earlier. Okay. Fantastic. Baz says, you seem to prefer var over type. Any reason for that? When you say type, do you mean explicitly specifying the type? Oh, hey. Fantastic. Like calling out that this is a whatever. Yeah, mostly just it feels so the more explicit way of writing it, and let me go ahead and cancel this while I'm messing with the code, would be companion extra info equals new, and the old school way would have been like this. And nowadays, if you're using a new enough thing, you could at least do new. Yes, I know. But the old way, before var or in C++, which I definitely grew up on C++ before moving to C#, like this would be the full way of spelling it out. And so now you can either lead the type, but before that, I think before that, you could lead the declaration and say, figure it out based off of whatever's happening over here. So there's 2 ways of doing this initialization, right? Or 3. You can spell everything out, which is a lot of extra typing. Or you can lead one of these 2 and deduce it based off of the other. But if this is actually being initialized based off the function call, so let's say we had a private void make info. Not void, sorry. This. Return new that. So if you have a function that is doing this, then instead of doing an initialization here, you're actually just calling this thing over here. Extra info 2. Thank you very much. So if you're going to consistently lead a thing, then you can lead the starting point. Var here, you can lead the starting point here, var here. But there's nothing on the right side of this that allows you to lead it. And quite often I am initializing things with the results of functions that I call. So from a consistency standpoint and a type as little as I can standpoint, I very much want the compiler to deduce the type of this variable based off of whatever is being returned from that function. And that can help a lot when you are dealing with the results of function calls chaining through other function calls. Like if this thing is being returned from here to here to here to here, and you make a change to that signature, if they don't change how they use the thing, if they're just passing it along, it all just works. If you ever declared that type explicitly, then you're going to have to go and fix that up. So I guess those are some thoughts I have when it comes to using var versus making the type explicit, but then deleting the type in the new statement. And just say new whatever it was I just said. Because that doesn't apply here, right? So for consistency's sake, that would look something like that, which would at least tell you that you have a type mismatch if you accidentally return something else from here. But Beth says, I would argue that you want it to fail in that case to avoid unintended changes. Maybe. I think it kind of depends on your domain, but in more often than not, in my experiences, if something is going to fail because of an unintended change, that probably should have been something that was being tested with like a unit test anyway, and you would have caught it there. Whereas far too often, I want that type information to flow. So anyway, those are thoughts I have. I wouldn't necessarily say there's a right way or a wrong way, but assuming I do want those type changes to percolate through the code more often than not, and assuming I want my initializations to be consistent across whether it's locally declared or return values from functions, then I just use those and tend towards var. And also this syntax I think came after var. I'd have to double check the C# version history, but pretty sure var was available before deleting the type was available. And so there's definitely a certain amount of muscle memory that gets in there to help me come up with reasons, or to make me want to come up with reasons to justify why my way is the right way. Where it's definitely not. Matters of taste and matters of coding standards. Beth says, it is quite new, but they've converted me when I can use it, I do. Yeah, absolutely. There are times when you need to declare the type explicitly. For instance, if the variable needs to be initialized in your function, but conditionally so. So string value, and then just as an example, if true, then then value equals var bool x. So if x value equals 1, else, this is a very simplified example. Sharp value equals 2. So in this kind of case where you have something more complicated than string, some larger structure, and you don't really want to assign it to any particular value because it will definitely be overwritten by one of these two branches. So in a case like that, you're absolutely going to be declaring the type. But in a case like that, I'm not going to be invoking a default constructor. Like, that's just not going to be something I write because, well, apparently here it's not valid anyway, because it was always going to be either null or not declared at all because it was going to be overwritten in one of these two branches. So that's a place where I would have to specify the type explicitly, but then I wouldn't be constructing it. If I was constructing it at all, I would tend to detect the type of it from the construction. And there are, of course, edge cases where you can't trust the default thing, but in those cases, I would have almost certainly write a function to do the construction and return the result as an explicit type rather than something else. So anyway, all that being said, var is great if you like it, and if you don't, if you prefer leading the type in the new call, that's fine too. Whatever. Yeah, I like var, and it does translate nicely to Lua because I'm typing local so much in Lua. Like, you have local or global, and that's all you get, but I like to do local where I can, and so typing something before that variable name, it does match very nicely to my var over here. It says, yeah, I guess I'd like it to be more explicit, especially if you throw dynamic into the mix. I almost never end up in situations where dynamic is a useful thing for me. So that might be part of it. Okay, awesome. Great question. Let's probably, yeah, I did lose whatever deed ID I was copying, so we're just going to regenerate the error while I get a drink. And we are coming up on, well, we're 2.5 hours into the stream, so we're probably coming up on a good breaking point in the near future. So if you've been lurking and have any questions, comments, concerns that you'd like to throw into chat, now's a great time to get to typing those so we have a chance to look at them. Otherwise, we'll just have to wait until next year. All right, what is up with this? We're going to go look at this somewhere. So first of all, let's make sure we know what we're talking about. This is the Fane of the Accursed. Great. Do we see that somewhere? No, we don't. Where should we see it? That's in instances. So let's come on in here. And double check ourselves. That was the name. The Fane of the Accursed Tier 3. Okay. So we should see that number here. We do. Awesome. Let's come back in to our deed info because we should have seen it come up there. We do not. Fane of the... Really? Did I forget to add them here? I probably did. Well, this is why the code does so much cross-checking to be like, hey, you're supposed to have a thing, and you don't have... I don't have my Legacy of Morgoth code. All right, we're going to come in and grab that then. Okay, first of all, we're going to go ahead and fill down again, just to make sure that we're not missing anything. And then come grab our minimalism code. Copy those in here. Great. Let's try that again. So Leo says, hi, is this a purely external app, or did LOTRO actually add a C# API? This is an external program that I wrote as a preprocessor to take the list of deed IDs that I care about in the ordering that I care about and fill in all the extra information and then tell me information about it. So, what do we have here? Oh, that's a conflicting names thing. Okay, that's fine. That is a thing I'm working on. It's not done yet. Okay. So, yeah, so to better explain, now that I'm not looking at that, what we have here is a list of deeds. So, for instance, in the for the in-game, somewhere in here is the in-game. Let's go ahead and load up deed tracker to describe the ordering of things. So we're in Breland. We're actually, where are we? Skirmish instances. There we go. In skirmish instances, coming on in here, tutorial offensives, encounters. And the way we describe that is we say the first one in skirmish instances, we know that that is ID this. But what we want to show is the actual name of it in the language of the client. So we want it to be English for English, German for German, French for French, Russian for Russian. And so what we would like to do, and maybe I can show this off here. Language. Okay, so what we would like to do is find where language is. Language equals that. Language equals German. We're just going to do this in German for a minute. Hang on a moment. Okay. Well, that's actually a good thing to detect. Awesome. So let's put that back a sec. We were seeing a problem in plugin functions 833. All right, let's come into plugin functions. Okay, did these not generate? Let's find out. Data. Okay, well, it says it updated, and we have all this stuff here. So I feel like it should work. Okay, anyway, so yes, in order to not have to do all this combining of data myself into these data files, I just specify the ID. I specify the ID, and then this preprocessor spits out the different English, French, German, and Russian files with all of the language-specific things that are available. That says, gotta love how trying to show something off makes you instantly go down a rabbit hole. Well, testing in other languages is an important part of the release process, so this was definitely going to happen at some point. It's just a little odd that it's happening here. All right. So where was the actual error? This was line 833. Really? In here? Bad argument of pairs, table expected. Oh, that's funny. Just out of curiosity. What's up with this? Really? We don't have the dump yet. That's fine. We don't actually need it for this. Probably. Okay. Language is EN. Okay. Just out of curiosity, do we get the same problem with French? Bad argument of pairs, table expected got nil. Well, that is just silly. Oh, maybe there's a syntax error? Here it is. Okay, why are we seeing syntax errors? We're not, are we? Seeing plenty of hyphens that are weird. But that's not an error. Well, it's just having an issue there. Okay. Okay. Tell me more, D-Tracker. What's up? All right, so we're saying checking. Great. Checking data with language. Ow, of course. Of course. I can't change the calling value of client language. I have to just change the function because too many places look at this function instead of the global. I don't even know why we have this global anymore, but we do. Right. So, as I was saying, in order to load this with a different language, for instance, German, without having to do a lot of manual compiling of different language versions of different strings and the titles, and oh, we're hovering over this, so we're getting information about that. Or let's go ahead and turn on experimental tooltip so we get all of this. So the preprocessor takes the structure and the IDs and squishes a bunch of things together into these data files. There we go. Little red head. So just rename it to lever. Then you can say, why do we even have this lever? I like it. Yeah, so this this global value is not used consistently, and that, of course, that resulted in that problem. In fact, let's add a note. To do. Some places look at language, some at get client language. Fix this discrepancy. That does not look like I spelled that right. Thinks it's fine. Why not? Okay. So that is fine. So yeah, same thing. If you wanted to come in with Russian, I don't want to be collecting all this information myself, but I can go ahead and have a preprocessor squish all the data together so that for those places where someone has localized Russian, we have at least something. And we can see I haven't properly localized lore colon and title colon, but it's a work in progress. But so much of the rest of this, and that'll be new in this release, is support for Russian localization where available. Cool. We're going to stop interfering with that. Awesome. Okay, so let's look at some of what we've got. I say that. Let's go to our maintenance file and make sure we're done. This will overwrite deed data, deed names IDs, and deed objective info. Cool. Let's take a look at it. So, a thing I need to work on is the automatic detection of conflicting quests. That is, quests and deeds that have the same name. So it's a work in progress, but we're adding some Russian stuff here. And that's what prompted me to need this, because for the Russian quests and deeds, we're definitely not going to be able to eyeball it, because I just don't have skills with Cyrillic. So we'll save that for a minute. And here we can see deed categories. So we're added update 42.3 deeds. Legacy of Morgoth deeds. Cool. So deed categories there, there, and we'll hold off on the Russian ones here. Auto-generated, this is the deed data, and this is what the preprocessor does, so that I do not have to generate all of any of this. So deed data, and deed data. Coming into the deed info, this is what we were just working on today. But we can see Legacy of Morgoth, the 4 Haradwith categories, and the reputation changes are what's included there. Beth says, you don't want to type that out manually? Lazy. I do not. In fact, I want to do even less of what we saw here today, but for historical reasons. So I keep saying that. So a problem that I've had is that in deed info, we have the structure of things. And if I could go back and wave a magic wand and fix some things, in deed data, we squish a bunch of other things in there, like the tier. How far indented is it visually? And is it available? Is it a Veil of the Nine quest? These kinds of things. And right now, we don't have support for that inline in the deed info structure. So it's sitting out there in a parallel set of arrays in a C# preprocessor to get squished together in here. But I would much rather, looking back on it, I would like to have a single place to edit that then produces all these other things. But the problem is I'm editing it in a file that is in use. This is the visual layout of the deeds. So the deed tracker is using this file, and I didn't want to have duplicated information where I had a bunch of things in this structure and also in the other structure. But if you only have the deed ID, finding its position in this table, that's super annoying. You have to do that triple loop to just search through, and okay, now you found it. So ideally, you do this to set things up, and then for each deed you have its ID, and you can look in that other table for the stuff. What I should have done was had a version of this file that the preprocessor consumes, and then spits out just the ID or the category ID version and all those other things. And that's where I need to go in the future to bring this all back into, it's all stored in Lua, and then the preprocessor just slurps it up, combines it with the LOTRO companion stuff, and spits it back out. But lessons learned, I was able to move forward by making these series of mistakes, and now I'll just need to move forward by fixing a series of mistakes. So that's fine. Okay, but that's what's up with that. So yes, deed info is good. Deed info strings. These are internal things. Deed items. Yeah, that looks great. Actually, we're not going to do any of the Russian commits. We're going to save those for... Oh no, that's all in one file. Yeah, we'll save the Russian commits for a separate one. Deed lookup tables. This is good. Baz says, hard to know if something is a mistake if you never made the mistake. Absolutely. And this fixed a whole bunch of other problems that I had. So, it just created new ones. So that's the nature of things. Okay. I can't help but notice that there's an open brace at the start of these deed names. That doesn't seem great. So let's go and take a look at those source files. Why is that not being properly cleaned up? Smoking asks, would it be viable to put all the data content in an SQL DB instead of Lua structure so you don't have to reload plugin to read updated data and make it easier to insert new data? So I could imagine some games could support that kind of a thing, but the Lua version that is embedded into Lord of the Rings Online is a sandboxed version. And if it is not within the code, then it must be within a .plugin data file within certain areas in your Lord of the Rings documents folder. So if we go to Documents, Lord of the Rings Online, plugin data, you can read, as a plugin, you can read anything in the account all servers directory, anything that has a .plugin data extension. You can read things there. You can read anything in a server name / all characters that ends in .plugin data. You can read or write to any of those. Or the character that you're logged into, any .plugin data in that. So account, server, character. Anything that ends in .plugin data, you can read or write those. And that's it. If you are a plugin and you're trying to read or write information on the hard drive of the machine that you're running on, those are your options. A file that is .plugin data, and when you write to it, it just writes out a Lua table. So if you don't want it to actually be a Lua table, you could in software try to re-encode stuff into like a basic C4 or something and just spit out a table that contains a single entry that is a string, but it's still a Lua table. Let's open one of those up. Detracker settings. So this is written out by the plugin, and you just get a Lua table. So when you load it in, you're essentially assigning the results of executing this statement, which is returning a Lua table into whatever variable, right? So yeah, there's no interacting with SQLite from within a plugin. Now, as a person, I could, for preprocessing purposes, I could take the XML files that are provided by LOTRO Companion, I could slurp them into a database instead for manipulation there. But the next release of LOTRO Companion is just going to update those XML files, and so I would have to re-import those, overwriting the appropriate data or inserting new data. And if the XML file structure changes, then I'd have to update my database. There's a lot of extra effort, and because the plugin itself can't use it, it would only be in use by the preprocessor that I've got here. It doesn't feel like it would be worth the effort at the moment. Now, maybe for some people that use case definitely exists, but for the way I'm dealing with this, I think it's just easier to process the XML files as they are provided to me. But great question, thank you. Hopefully I interpreted your question the way you meant me to and not in some other direction. But let me know. Okay, so we are supposed to have pre-processed this, and so one of the things the preprocessor does is take the gendered version of Slayer deed names, for instance, Slayer of Bretown in German, and I think in French you're going to have masculine and feminine versions of those based on the player genders. And we have failed to strip out a brace, and that's very strange. So we're gonna see if that happened more often. Oh, that is going to be an incredibly difficult thing to search for. We're going to search for something different. Just those two. Why these two? He asked hypothetically. And did it happen to the French as well? Not obviously. Why these two? And was it just a glitch? Should I rerun this? Okay, so that's Boar Slayer of this new place. Okay, I gotta ask. I mean, there's no real obvious thing that I'm seeing. Is it going to be easy to find this? I mean, we're supposed to be removing gender indicators. Tell you what, let's fix, quote unquote, this by hand for a moment. We're going to rerun this and see if it does it again. Because if it's reproducible, then there's a problem in my preprocessor. And if it's not reproducible, then I'm going to say cosmic rays. Okay. So let's come back in. Okay, it reproduced. Awesome. I mean, depending on your point of view. We have a process LOTRO string function. And the trick would be, I would like to... I'd like to better understand where this is getting used. Okay. let's just search for gender. Okay. This is in the companion XML processor. This is a reasonable place to find what we're looking for. There's maybe a couple places that come up in the search, but let's start with this. So check for gender-based conjugations. Great. Why are you complaining about this? Boy, I don't care about that. Okay. So we're looking for matches. What would be neat is, where are we? So let's go ahead and say if d.id equals, and is this a string or a number? That is a number. Then so just a little thing, and this your experience may vary, but my goal is to set a conditional breakpoint for when the ID equals a certain value. And for whatever reason on my system, if I do a conditional breakpoint where I say I'm looking for ID equals whatever, it feels much less performant. That is, it takes a lot longer to run through the code until that thing gets triggered than if I just explicitly write an if statement looking for the thing and then I break on that. And I expect that has to do with under the covers how breakpoints in C# are handled. But just FYI, you may have a much faster experience finding a bit of code if you just go ahead and edit the code. If you have code that you can edit the code, add the check, and just put meaningless code inside that you can do a breakpoint on. But it's absolutely true, smoking, in chat, that there's a lot of time just loading a bunch of XML files and munging all the data together in memory that could be done more efficiently if this were in a database. But ideally, I am doing this about once every release cycle of Lord of the Rings Online. So it kind of doesn't matter if it is a performant process, if it takes 1 minute or 10 minutes, as long as I don't have to do it a bunch looking for a bug. It doesn't really matter how long it takes. If it takes an hour, if I'm only running it once every 3 months, Okay, so we have found a thing. We're going to process the thing. We have the name. That's the raw name. Then we're in the English version of this. We would like to not be in the English version of it. So, awesome. We are looking at the German version of this. Let's look at it. So we processed it, but we still have the markers. Okay, so yes. We didn't remove gender markers. So we are matching. Okay. What's going on here? So in the deed files, the gendered deed names can appear male, female, or female, male. So we have basically two identical regular expressions with which we are looking for these things. Let's pull up the example that we're looking for. So we can be looking at this. In fact, let's pull up two examples. One we know is not working, and one that we know should be. Slayer of Breeland. This one we know does work. At least we hope it does. Zul says, file handling in C# has some pretty performant options too, stuff like memory map files, for example. Don't have too much experience using them, but there are interesting APIs beyond the standard stuff. Absolutely. I would be confident, though, that the main issue is that I am slurping up an XML file and then transforming it to be the C# structures that I want in a non-performant way. I'm just naively walking through the XML. So first of all, yeah, the XML file gets read in and turned into structures based off of an XML schema. And I take that and I manipulate it in some way. And there are a lot of deeds in Lord of the Rings Online. Just out of curiosity, how many deeds are in this file? There's 5,088. It's worse because you also need quests sometimes. So there's way more quests than there are deeds. And we can see in this output that we load the deed XML files, and that's 4 of them, 1 for each language. The quest XML files, which are way bigger. Just at a quick look, the deed XML file is about 6.5 megs, and the quest file is another 50 megs. So we're loading 200 megs just in the quest files alone. Then we need all of the labels, which are... that's a interesting point. If we're loading the label files, we may only be loading a single deed and a single quest. But still, that's like 60 megs of files just for... 35 megs of files for the unlabeled versions. Then we have to load the labels, and we have to integrate them in. Like, there's a lot of processing that's happening. But at the end of the day, there's just a lot of data to process. And if it weren't stored in an XML file, as Smoking was asking, if it was in a database, the access of the underlying data, you wouldn't have to first parse it to sort it out. If you're accessing an arbitrary record of a database, it is X number of fields down, this number of bytes, and you're done. And so database access can be performed in a way that XML file access really can't, because you do not know how many characters you have to skip to get to the next record of the file. You have to parse the file. Now you can do it one record at a time, but you're still reading in a chunk of bytes and parsing to figure out where you are in that structure. It's just inherently way, way slower than going into a database. Now, it has some benefits. You can have variable length fields very easily, but variable length fields are a huge problem if you're trying to do performant data lookups. So, okay, sorry. Stuff and things. What's going on here? This is what we're looking for. And so we are looking for, but we know that we just called, we just called a function that should have stripped off the $sign. So Zul says, yeah, lots of ways to improve performance through how you handle structures in your code too. They say Molly Rocket has a good video on how object-oriented programming, OOP thinking, has extreme performance costs in exchange for the advantages in maintenance and working on projects in larger teams. Yeah, and there's definitely a question to be had about what things are important for your project. But for a lot of commercial project that has the intent of being around for more than a couple of years, maintainability is almost certainly going to jump towards the top of the list. Performance might be up there, depends on what's going on. If you're a batch job that gets run once a month to generate some files for some other system, then performance, you want it to be as performant as it needs to be. But it's very different to a job that gets run once an hour, so it better take less than an hour or else it starts stacking up on itself. But maintainability is just such a crucial thing for software that has a longer life cycle. So sometimes you do make those choices where, okay, we will sacrifice performance in the name of being able to read the code when we come back around to it. Baz says, this is all pretty funny to me as I have been going through this process lately, more or less. Prime parse combat output is in the form of an XML string which gets read by the desktop graphing tool to view your data. The new version of that tool is converting these files to SQLite databases. Yeah, so basically, at what point do you cross the point of balance between performance that's good enough versus code maintainability? And it very much depends on the domain that you're working in, whether performance or how much performance matters. Um, yeah, if your stuff gets run regularly but not very often, then performance probably matters less than maintainability. If you are the critical tight loop code that is getting run dozens of times a second from now until the next year, then you can actually have a meaningful impact on power consumption on the machine that you're running on. And for some data centers, power consumption is actually a bigger concern than like a bigger cost saver than most anything else. So it all depends on where you're working. And so for a preprocessor that ideally gets run once per release cycle, it's just hard to want to optimize it more than makes my life easier when I'm debugging code or something. Speaking of which, what's going on with this? It's a new format. Fantastic. Okay, what are we seeing here? We're seeing that we have an extra format, an extra brace here, where there is a prefix happening, and then something that is tagged here. And so is player name getting stripped off? Let's go take a look. We're going to process that LOTRO string, and in that processing, Zill points out, if your code mainly depends on calls to external APIs and databases, the round trips can top any in-memory parsing anyway. I guess it depends on how badly you write your parsing code. I have written some very bad parsing code in my life, but I appreciate your confidence. Okay. We're going to say before call to process LOTRO string. They look like this. And after call to process LOTRO string, they should look like something. Let's think about what this is. So we know that player name is going to get stripped out. So let's go ahead and remove that. We know that $sign gets stripped out. So let's get rid of that. Is there anything else meaningful that's going to get stripped out? We are not passing in true for the removing gender stuff because we need that at the moment. And we're not removing new lines. No, remove new lines is true. Collapse white space is false. Okay. So anything else of interest happening here? Well, let's take a look, because I think when the breakpoint is still active, so we should be able to see name here. Okay, name was being processed, and that is what we were expecting. Let's go ahead and copy that out just to double check. Okay, here, in theory, although we're not going to have the quotes there, that looks pretty much the same. It is the same. Great. So that is after the call. And we can see what they've done here is they are embedding the thing what we are looking for in something else. And what's up with that starting and ending brace? I've lost it. Sorry. Need to head back down there. Okay. they've made a mistake. They have a mismatched number of braces. Right? Because normally you have $brace player name colon, and then you have a closing brace somewhere. And oh my goodness, this is too much to read. Okay. That says, oh, are you talking about my massive deletes or the error? Yeah. So in general, we have an open brace and a closed brace, and the open brace is very consistent. No problems, no notes. You know what? I don't need that raw name either. And then the closed brace should be very consistent. It's the braces that exist somewhere else, and I understand why they did it. I think they're saying that this will be Wildschwein Bezwinger or Wildschwein Bezwingerin, but they've written it inconsistently. Oh, Zil says, not gonna lie, that way of culling line content looks great. Is that a Sublime feature? Haven't seen a quick multi-line handle like that in Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code. Yeah, so the way that works in Sublime Text is I'm using the quick find all feature to start my multi-selection. So in this case, I was looking for every line. I was looking for every line. So I knew I wanted any line that has a raw name. I go ahead and in Sublime Text again. That's quick find all, or I just do Alt F3, and then you have a multi-select. So at that point, I can go ahead and Home Shift End to select the lines. There's probably a faster way to select the line, but I'm used to that. Copy and paste into a new buffer. And at that point, I have just the lines that had raw name on them. That's every deed line, essentially. And at that point, same thing. I can just Alt F3 to select raw name and say, okay, everything from raw name to the beginning of the line, get rid of. Again, just Shift and then Home. But same thing, I can say, okay, everything type equals to the end of the line, Shift End. Let's get rid of that. And depending on how consistent the file is, and depending on if I've made any mistakes, at that point I should just have the raw name still in quotes. And if I didn't want the quotes, I could kill those too. Easy enough. The more multi-selects you have, and in that case that was 10,000 of them, the more multi-selects you have, apparently I logged out. More multi-selects you have, the less performant this is. If you do something like a delete, it is going to have to churn through and shift the text for every one of those deletes. If you have tens of thousands of these multi-selections and you do something like that, it's going to be really obvious what's going on. But you can shortcut that. For instance, if I know I want everything in the quotes on all the lines, I can go ahead and do a multi-select that just copies the stuff that is not the quotes and paste it in, and it's almost immediate. Whereas if I selected all of the quotes and deleted it, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005, There we go. About 5 seconds. That's not very great, and the undo is almost as bad. But if I were to go ahead and do a multi-select of all the lines and just delete the first character, still a couple of seconds because it's got to adjust 5,000 lines. So it's almost easier to go in and select the things you don't want to delete, paste it into a new buffer, and then you get the same effect but without the large delay because of all the chunking. For a multi-select copy, it just goes through and says, okay, copy this, copy this, copy this, copy this, and is pasting into the new one. And for some reason, it's just super more performant. So if you know what your goal is, you can bypass some of these performance inefficiencies with the multi-select. Don't delete a chunk from 20,000 different things in a huge file. Is one of the big ones. But even editing this, I've multi-selected every line here. If I press space, it still has to think about pushing forward all that text on 5,000 different lines. So it's still, a little unperformant. That one I don't have a good solution for if you're actually inserting text. But stripping it out, that's much easier. Bam. So Sublime Text, I'm sure, isn't the only thing out there that can do multi-select. It's just the one that I am used to. So whatever your favorite text editor is that is more advanced than Notepad, double check to see what kind of features it has. Learn those keyboard shortcuts. I use this for the strangest things. I just find it very convenient that I have a way to do essentially a macro against a file of thousands or tens of thousands of lines, but I don't have to think about it. I can just, okay, I have found a thing that works for this one. Like, oh, I'm looking for a classic thing. I was doing this earlier, actually, is I want to know what categories there are in this file. So let's go ahead and select category equals quote. Let's Control-Shift-Right to select the word, Control-Right to select that quote, and we're going to copy those into a new file. Cool. Let's go ahead and sort these lines and permute them as unique. I just realized that menu's underneath my face. And then we just have a list of the categories. In fact, we can go ahead and kill category and we can kill the quote. And these are the numerical categories sorted in numerical order, textual order, not in numerical order. So the 1 through 9 are intermixed with the others. But these are the categories that are in use in the deeds file. That may not be useful in and of itself, but that can be an important part of something else. Like when I was trying to figure out which categories the new deeds were in, I could just strip those out, sort unique, and then I had 4 or 5 categories that I had to concern myself with. So little things like that just come up all the time. Once you have this hammer, lots of things start looking like a nail. Okay. I have, of course, lost whatever I was working on, but it's super easy to get back. All right, let's go ahead and type equals, kill that, and come on in, get rid of the raw name. Maybe I did have that. What I'm really looking for is anything that has that. We're going to paste that into a new one. We don't care about the rest. Little things. Put stuff like that into a Sublime Tips in 100 seconds video, and it should rack up views like crazy. I can't be the only person who is enamored with multi-select. That feels like a thing that's got to be out there already, but I appreciate the idea. I was introduced to this by a coworker several jobs ago, and they were like, "Oh, cool! Look at this thing that you can do," and it just become an almost daily tool for both work stuff as a software engineer and just personal life stuff. It's like sometimes you just get a friend who's like, "Can you help me with a CSV file in Excel?" And I'm like, "Sure," pass it over, and it's exported dollars in with a period instead of a comma like you would expect in Europe, and you can fix it. You can fix it so easy if you can find the right patterns to find those things, stuff like that. Okay, so the basic pattern was always feminine or masculine, and then stuff, or sometimes a longer thing if it's masculine, feminine, and stuff at the end. What is... I'm really curious if this thing shows up properly in game, or I mean, it could be a LOTRO companion thing. I should save that number off actually. Nope. Okay, I got a note to ask LOTRO companion that later. Bimskala says, do you not use VS Code at all? I do use VS Code. I've got it open here for the Lua stuff. But for the... I did not have VS Code downloaded at the time that I was doing this preprocessor, but I did have Visual Studio, so I just ran it in that ecosystem instead. And, you know, I'm not casting my lot in with either one of them. It just, this happened to be the tool that was there when I was writing this preprocessor, and changing it just feels like, oh, that is work that I could be using to do something else instead. So, them says, gotcha, makes sense. I still use VI sometimes. Fair enough. I used Vim for a long time at a job, several jobs ago, that was a Linux shop, and that was kind of the best thing that we had for writing C++ at the time in that shop for reasons. So Vim was my C++ editor of choice. But it's been many years since I've been using Vim. Okay, so I feel like this is the only deed that is causing this problem. And I feel like it is causing this problem because it is a mistake. So we can see here, I think these are monster PVMP stuff, Reiki and Dash, and this is where the substitution string should be. So this should be here. That would make this work. And it's the only one, at least I think, like we can see it here. Yeah. So I think we just fixed this up because it is broken. And so what we're going to do is we are going to come on in here. And be really bad about finding the thing. Let's do better. There we go. Boar Slayer. Yeah. So for this raw name, and it feels a little silly, but sometimes you just hard code this, like this one. So text equals text.replace, and what we're looking for is this, and we're going to replace it with this, which is to say, we're going to extract that out. And that's it. Let's give that a shot. I've broken something. Missing semicolon? Missing semicolon. There we go. Okay, so as we can see, the loading of the XML files does take a minute. And when it says loading, it's really, there's a library that's parsing it into a memory structure of some type. Okay, well, I forgot about that. But, you know, let's go ahead and look. So, we can look at this name, and then we can process it, and it's fixed up. Okay, let's go ahead and match this up. the name was male female, so we're gonna have matching here, and let's see what happens. Zul says, I wonder if you could speed up the parsing with some parallel for each shenanigans. Probably. Like I said, I wrote this very straightforwardly for the maintenance part of it. It just does one file at a time. Patine says, how's it going today? It's going great, except for this one problem. Okay, let's see. Excellent. Except for the fact that it didn't work, that was great. Why didn't it work? Fix bad gender pattern. But why didn't it work? Let's go check in here, because we know what we're looking for. We're looking for something like this. And what we had was something like this. And what we thought we would transform it into was of course. No, we needed to remove that brace. That was just a misunderstanding. So if we replace that with this, kill the extra brace. And I forgot to comment out this for performance, such as it is. Awesome. Let's check this out. Okay, we can see Wald Schrein-Bezwinger and Bezwingeren are gendered titles, or sorry, gendered deed names seem like they are correct. From an efficiency standpoint, it would be possible to, if it were possible to detect the gender of your character when you logged in, we could say, okay, only load the gendered versions of these that matter that we're going to see. But I'm not sure we have a way to see that. What's up, little one? Yeah, when you're underneath my chair, it's hard for me to give you scritches. All right. But anyway, so what we are seeing is that we have corrected our versions of the Slayer deeds. And I'm curious what is up with that one. I guess that just changed names. Okay. Zul says, as a German who only uses English in anything related to gaming, those translations feel so weird to me. I have heard mixed feelings on the German and French translations of the game. There's some players, even today in chat, who are German, who will just play in the English client. I appreciate that because it's coming from an English source, that a lot of people are just like, hey, Lord of the Rings is in English, let's just play it in English. But I appreciate there are some people who just want to play it in their native language, and that's neat. What is going on here? That doesn't seem great. Is it not translated? There could be some localizations missing. Yeah, okay. It's just not localized in this one yet. That can also happen where the localization's in-game lag behind and there are just a few missing. So what we're going to see is this will work until they fix it, and then we'll need to regenerate this file with the updated information. Zil thinks localizations will almost every time be worse than the original if you have enough proficiency with the original language. Well, I mean, there's translation and then there's localization. And so, for instance, in the... Oops, just knocked something off. In the book The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Arthur Dent lives in a small village in England. And in the Dutch translation of it, the character, whose name has changed, lives in a small village in the Netherlands. Because if he's your everyman, then he should probably be from your country, I suppose. So they localized it by not only changing the name of the character, but also moving where he was, so he would feel like where people who are Dutch readers reading that would understand what it means to be living in this village in this province, where they wouldn't necessarily understand that for the original location of Arthur, or at least the original idea of Arthur Dent's location. You know, Arthur Dent's friend, Ford Prefect, that name is a joke based off of the prevalence of the model of car, the Ford Prefect, that was very common at that time. The Dutch version of that character is named Amro Bank, A-M-R-O Bank, because that is a very popular bank in the Netherlands. Same joke, but localized into something that would make sense. Because Ford Prefect, that didn't even make sense to me as a child growing up in the 80s and 90s in the United States, because I had never heard of a Ford Prefect before. So that joke sailed over my head until I had enough understanding to circle back around and be like, oh, ha ha ha, intellectually I know this is funny, but I've never seen a Ford Prefect car knowingly in my life. And so if that were to be localized to an American in the 90s, it would have to be some other brand name that is really common that seems, oh, that's a really common name. Of course I'll adopt that as my persona when I'm on Earth. And oops, it's really the name of something like an Apple Macintosh. Like that would be the name of someone who's trying to assimilate in the 90s and thinks that's a very common human name. And where in reality it's a product, right? Yeah, or Little Redhead points out he could have been named Chevette in the U.S. So these things are what I think about when I think about localization. Translation is just turning one word to another in my mind, but the localization is the part where you make it not feel weird to your audience, whatever that means. And so for Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, that was changing Ford Prefect to Amro Bank. And changing changing Arthur Dent to whatever his name is, I can't remember. But an everyman name for the Netherlands instead of for England, right? That kind of thing. So that was the localization side of it. The translation parts of it are, how do you translate the word hitchhiker? How do you translate the word guide? The localization is, how do you make this guy feel like he's from rural Netherlands? And it's such a hard job. And if you do it really well, the best you're going to get is, oh, that's a good experience. And if you mess things up a little bit, you're going to be like, oh man, this sucks. So it's the people who do that kind of work are kind of unsung heroes because, if they do their work really well, they're invisible. You don't realize they're there. But I will say this file looks fine now. The processing looks like it's good. So we're going to come back in and we're going to look at the English version real fast and make sure everything looks good here. New stuff. Dark and the Storm tier. What's going on with that? Thanks. That was a good excursion. Yeah, I can go off on side things really easily. Interesting. Did they change that from tier 5 to tier 3? All right. Why not? And then Valor Instance and Circumference Access, they've renamed it from 140 to just Access. All right, fair enough. Well, the preprocessor is why I don't actually have to care about that other than to make sure it wasn't a mistake. French. Any problems parsing the French stuff? And I'm not reading every word here, but I am seeing a few things that did not get localized. I'm guessing, I wonder if the Boer stuff got added later in development, and that's why it's not, that's why it was missed as being under the Slayer deed in the one region. Yep, that one lost the 140, 5 turned to 3, okay. Yeah, good to know. And again, we'll commit the Russians separately. Deed objectives. These are how we can show the tooltips that tell us what's going on. You're very weird when you sit under me. Keep having this worry that like the chair is suddenly going to break and I'm going to squish the cat. And the chair is very solid, but still. Yes, you are causing me distraction. Okay. Stuff and things. Why is the Sunken Labyrinth Tier 1 losing information? He asks, wondering if it's been shoved into the quest instead of the deed. You are being distracting, cat. I'm just going to compare with the previous one for kicks. Okay, let's come on in here. Don't ding at me, I know. Okay, okay, so what are we losing here? Bonk. No, actually that does seem plausible. I wonder if I was mucking with something. Alright, these things are being added. Stuff is being changed. Hardtack is getting different. Okay. And then we have all of the new stuff. Okay. I think that is probably okay. Zil says, I used to work on a community patch for the North American and EU versions of a Chinese MMO called Age of Wushu. Localization there was very tricky because of the much denser text spacing of the Chinese language, so its UI had tons of issues. Yeah, I can believe that. I used to get in touch with some players I knew to have Chinese backgrounds themselves and ask for ways to improve sections or even provide ones where the actual localization team had just given up. Yeah. Well, text hits for 400 characters is very effective. Absolutely. The amount of space text takes up in the user interface is such a subtle thing sometimes, where when you're designing a layout in your native language, you just like, hey, the button needs to be this wide, or the field just needs to be this wide, and then you come into some other language where, nope, it's actually way longer for whatever reason. Or if you go, for instance, with French, if you use some of the official French words for some modern things, that there are shortened things that everyone understands, and I'm trying to think of a good reason, a good version. I don't want to misquote them, but I think the official French versions of words like computer end up much longer than the more informal ones. And that whole, oh, we don't want French to get too Englishified, so we're going to use our French to describe these things. And that's fine, whatever. Good luck in this day and age. But yeah, when you end up having something like fax, F-A-X, turn into some very long thing because formal French demands it, it's just like, but why? I don't have room for that. Deed objectives, good. And this is also says, I mean, in English, we also just say PC instead of computer now, which is funny because the C in PC means computer. You could just say C and save yourself a whole letter. Perhaps not. PC just seems like such a weird thing. And I was thinking this the other day, is that somehow PC landed as an appropriate thing to describe once upon a time an alternative to Apple, I guess? A Mac? Is it a Mac or a PC? But PC literally just means personal computer at this time. So once upon a time that either meant or implied something different, or people are just really bad at naming things, because Apples are also personal computers. So that's one that just annoys me. Like, PC, are we differentiating it based on the P or the C? Like, is it personal versus business, or is it computer versus what? How is this useful? But I agree. Computer is a whole 3 syllables, and PC is shorter, but and easier to spell. But I just that one baffles me. Yeah, IBM PC. But again, if PC is just personal computer, then an Apple one is also a PC. It was just a really, really weird branding thing where they took a very generic way of describing a thing and incorporated it into the brand, and it just stuck. It's like, yes, it's a personal computer. They are all personal computers. You're not buying a business computer on your on the amount of money you're spending on this thing. I don't know. I'll try not to get too distracted by it, but it's very weird. Okay, region info. What's going on with the region info? These are just additions of Russian, it looks like. Okay, we'll save that. Source files. Let's go ahead and get out these Excel spreadsheets so their temporary files aren't there anymore. All right. We'll go ahead and let the to-do file. What's going on in here? That's Russian. This is... Oh, that actually might be a reasonable fix. More Russian. To-do. That's all great. Import. That's a to-do item. Russian. Yeah, this was a place where I had to change the font because the font, the default font in dtracker does not render Cyrillic. So I got to change font. This says, yeah, sorry for constantly going off track here. That is kind of a theme for me, so don't worry about that. We're going to add the README here. Russian. We're good there. Conflicting quests. Yes, we did want to add that. Okay. Deed data. Yeah, we can include that. That just updated timestamps. Great. All the non-Russian stuff is ready to go. And this is what we were just reviewing, all of this. This is the legacy of Morgoth Thieves. And we're going to go ahead and commit that into a commit. Yay! Little red head says, yeah, it's definitely a theme here. He said he was wrapping up an hour ago. Yeah, but then I had a bug I had to find. This is totally a normal thing. We are actually coming up on midnight here in the Netherlands, where there's going to be lots of fireworks. So this is actually a really good time to wrap things up, because it's going to be difficult to concentrate, let alone possibly you being able to hear me. So, yeah. Oh, right, all of that. I need to deal with that, but not today. I'll just get rid of that, and yeah, neat. So, today I wanted to update the dtracker deeds. We're not quite ready for a release yet, but all of that information is in there, so a release is going to be in the near future for the 42.3 deeds in-game. And as we saw, there's likely to be an update soon, because some of those French and German deed names for the Boar Slayers have not been localized yet. But that is to be expected. But in the meantime, we'll have a much easier time picking up those small changes now that we've gotten the 150 or so deeds added on in. Yeah, there's some fireworks in the background. Okay, well, I think. Ah, nice. Zul says they're like 50 kilometers away from the Netherlands-German border. Well, we are closer to the border. Ah, ha, ha. Actually, I don't know how close we are, but it's bicycle distance. So we are near Arnhem. Little Redhead says we're about 30 minutes from the border. Yeah, so you might be able to hear some over noise, but probably not so much. Awesome. Well, I think I'm all caught up in chat, and we've made great progress today, and so that's everything we're going to cover. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me on this exploration of LOTRO plugins. I hope you have a very happy end of your year, a very merry new year, and I hope to see you here next week. Until then, keep plugging along. All right, bye-bye now.